Homework 2.3, Linear Functions and Slopes, Video 4. Homework due Friday, May 22nd, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. In the previous video, we talked about the different forms of the equation of a line: point-slope form, abbreviated PSF, slope-intercept form, abbreviated SIF, and general form, abbreviated GF. In this video and the next video, we're going to talk about setting up equations of lines and then maybe rewriting the equations into a different form. I'll go ahead and tell you right now that the majority of the time, when you start writing the equation of a line, you typically start with point-slope form. The reason you don't start with general form is because it doesn't contain any information with which to build it. And the reason you usually don't start with slope-intercept form is that slope-intercept form requires two very specific pieces of information: the line's slope, and it only has one slope, and the line's y-intercept, and it only has one y-intercept. But point-slope form does require the slope, and there's only one slope per line, but it requires any point. How many points are on a line? An infinite number of points. So the information that you need to start point-slope form is a lot more generic than, say, slope-intercept form, which needs the slope and the y-intercept. Whereas point-slope form still needs the slope, but any old point will do. So in these two examples, we're going to write each line in point-slope form and then convert that equation into slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form, in my opinion, is the best ending point for the equation of a line. It's short, it's compact, and it contains a lot of information. But it's not a good starting point unless you happen to know the y-intercept. All right, so let's take a look at this first example. Let's say we have a line of slope -5 and point on the line is 3, -1. If we want to write the equation in point-slope form, let's start by writing the generic template for point-slope form: y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And now we're going to insert some values. At some level, you need to identify which number is which letter. If that means thinking it or saying it, that's fine, but if that means writing it, then that's what you do. In this problem, the slope is represented by the letter m, so we're going to substitute -5 for m. The first x, the only x that we're given, is 3, so x1 is going to be replaced with the 3. And the first y that we're given, the only y that we're given, is -1. So we're going to substitute -1 for y1. When you substitute these values, one thing I advocate is to rewrite point-slope form, but don't write m, x1, or y1. So y minus, don't write y1, equals, don't write m, parentheses, x minus, don't write x1, close parentheses. By removing the letters and writing everything else, you're preserving the structure of the form, and you're leaving places to insert your values. So what value will I insert for y1? -1. What value will I insert for m? -5. And what value will I insert for x1? 3. At this point, we have point-slope form. Now, just a word of, just a heads up, a warning, if you will. In the homework problems that ask you to do this, such as 6 through 10, they do want you to type in point-slope form. However, they will not like it if you leave a double negative alone. Anytime you set up a double negative, you're obligated to turn it into a plus. So if this were a homework question, you would type y plus 1 equals -5, parentheses, x minus 3, and that would be your point-slope form. But what about slope-intercept form? What about an equation that says y equals mx plus b? Well, we're not going to build it from scratch. We're going to dig it out of this. And how do you do that? Well, let me ask you this. Why is this currently not in slope-intercept form? I'll give you a hint. There are two things wrong with it. Thing number one, the y is not by itself, so we'll have to fix that. That's what's wrong with the left side. But what's wrong with the right side in terms of slope-intercept form? What does the right side of this currently have that the right side of this doesn't? Answer, parentheses. So those are the two things preventing us from getting where we need to be. So let's fix both of them. Starting with the parentheses. The parentheses are easy to fix. We just need to distribute. Be very careful. I'm distributing in -5. -5 times x is -5x. But -5 times -3 is positive 15. That gets us one step closer to slope-intercept form, but we still need to get the y by itself. Easy, subtract 1 from both sides. And we get y equals -5x plus 15 minus 1 is 14, and there's our slope-intercept form. So point-slope form is y plus 1 equals -5 parentheses x minus 3, and slope-intercept form is y equals -5x plus 14. I invite you to pause the video and try the other one. I know the slope is a fraction, but I've said in previous videos that at this point in the game, you can't not do a problem just because it has a fraction. You're expected to know how to handle fraction arithmetic. Don't worry, I'll remind you how to handle it in just a moment. So pause the video and go ahead and give this problem a try. And now I'm going to set it up and run with it. The more you do this, the quicker it goes. When I wrote the form for point-slope form, it's because it's the first example we did. But the truth is, I could have just written it without the y1, without the m, and without the x1 at the beginning. Just make sure you know where everything goes. And again, at some level, you have to identify what all the pieces are. What's the y1 in the second problem? The 11. What's the m in this problem? 2/3. And what's the x1 in this problem? -12. So as far as point-slope form, that's it. But same warning I gave you before. The online homework will not let you type in a double negative. It will go, Although your answer is correct, it's not in the right form. Please make sure you read all directions. Make sure your answer is completely simplified. You can tell I've seen that message quite a bit. So if we clean up the double negative in the parentheses, we get x plus 12, and this would be a better, and in the homework, correct answer for point-slope form. But for slope-intercept form, we pretty much do the same thing we did before. Distribute and then get the y by itself. Distributing in the 2/3 might seem a little intimidating, but it's not for two reasons. Number one, anything times x, you just stick in front of it. So 2/3 times x is 2/3 x. Number two, to do a problem like 2/3 times 12, the rule for multiplying fractions is easy. Multiply across the tops, multiply across the bottoms. Oh no, the 12 isn't a fraction. Put it over 1 and it is. 2 times 12 is 24. On the bottom, 3 times 1 is 3. And 24 divided by 3 is 8. You see, that didn't hurt. By the way, you could have also said 3 cancels into 12 4 times. 2 times 4 is 8. Just choose your plan of attack and stick with it. All right, speaking of plans of attack, we're in the middle of converting this to slope-intercept form, and the only reason that's not there yet is this y isn't by itself. We can fix that by adding 11 to both sides of the equation, which will get the y by itself, and give us y equals 2/3 x plus 19, and there's our slope-intercept form. So as you can tell, converting from point-slope form to slope-intercept form is fairly predictable. Distribute to get rid of the parentheses. Add or subtract as necessary to get the y by itself. About the only thing that can go wrong is there might be fractions in your way. Boo-hoo. All right, we're going to take another look at some equations in just a moment. But again, during this video and the next one, you might want to be checking out questions 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 from homework 2.3.